This is Dzogchen Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Yoda Monday, early Monday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after we review the Four Noble Truths. Let's see. Let us begin with a tale of two cousins, shall we? Consider, if you will, the Buddha known as Gautama or Shakyamuni and his foolish cousin Devadatta. Whether they were real or whether they were merely archetypes, they can help us understand two ways of living. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including humans, including meditation teachers. So, the 90% of meditation teachers could be described as following institutional Buddhism. They teach the virtues, the so-called virtues of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. The minority follow proto-Buddhism and endorse the virtues of being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So we have a choice. Do we want to be like grumpy Mace Windu or groovy Qui-Gon Jinn? Do we want to be like the Big Lebowski or like the dude? If you want to be like grumpy Mace Windu or the Big Lebowski, I probably am not the teacher for you. I will probably drive you to drink. However, if you are intrigued and want to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, of the archetype of the Buddha or Qui-Gon Jinn or the dude, then I'll be glad to help you out. So let's begin with the first noble truth, stress. I'm not going to be approaching this literally, but figuratively. Any student of literature, regardless of the language in which it was written, understands that not all statements are literal. Many statements that look literal are actually metaphors, and therefore it's useful to reverse engineer them back into similes. So many who are rigid would say everything is suffering. Well, that's what we call a hyperbolic statement. It's figurative. Let's break it down. The astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson is famous for saying the universe is trying to kill us. That is also a hyperbolic statement. Ask a biologist and they will tell you that we have evolved to notice stressors, be they mental, interpersonal, physical, or circumstantial. Our body interprets them painfully as stressors because if those needs are not met, it could undermine not only our personal survival, but our ability to procreate, no less raise the next generation. Sounds good. What are we going to do about those stressors? Good question. Some people translate the second noble truth as the cause of our stressors. And they'll say that we have stress because we have desire, or we have stress because we have karma. However, a careful study of the Eightfold Path, a careful study of the Buddha's first 3 meditation manuals, don't have any mention of karma. What they do have is a mention of loving kindness. Consider, if you will, the Eightfold Path. 50% of it is comprised of references to loving kindness. Mental loving kindness, interpersonal loving kindness, physical loving kindness, and circumstantial loving kindness in the form of kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. Some of the great luminaries, such as Karma Chakme Rinpoche, taught that the essence of morality is simply nonviolence or loving kindness. So, from a certain point of view, the second cause of suffering, I'm sorry, I misspoke. From a certain point of view, the second noble truth is that a lot of our sufferings are exacerbated by our response to the too stressful circumstances, forgive me, I'm a bit tongue twisted right now. Please bear with me. I'm disabled, and one of my symptoms of disability is word loss. So what are some of the things that exacerbate the circumstantial or physical or interpersonal or mental stressors? It's the overuse of certain survival mechanisms, because there's a difference between use and overuse. Consider our dopamine-oriented system. It rewards for survival. It is as if it induces our underbrain to ask certain questions when encountering any new thing, being, or phenomena. It seems to ask, hey, should I fuck it? Should I feed on it? Should I find it? Should I flee from it? Should I faint before it? Should I fawn over it? Now, these knee-jerk, self-centered responses may help us live another day. They may drive us to find water when we're thirsty, food when we're hungry, a safe place to sleep when we're weary. They might drive us to find shade when we're hot and warmth when we're cold. They might drive us to procreate and therefore propitiate the species. And so from a certain point of view, in a very limited sense, they are useful. But if we take it as our North Star, as they are the organizing factor of our life, as by which we navigate, it's going to be deeply unsatisfying. Relying exclusively 100% on our survival mechanisms it's kind of like getting a flat tire, replacing that tire with the teeny tiny donut tire that most cars come equipped with under their trunk, and then expecting to drive 3,000 miles on it. No, driving in a car with a donut tire, you're lurching, it's bad for your back, it's bad for the rest of the car, it's not a high performance alternative. You've got to get to a tire shop ASAP or a dealership ASAP and get the right tool, the right tire for your make and model and use of car. Similarly, we have more than one reward system. In addition to the dopamine reward system, we have an oxytocin-oriented reward system. And so let's consider a tale of two reward systems. one which is dopamine oriented, and one which is oxytocin oriented. It's a question of, I put the cart before the horse. So if the second noble truth, the cause of our suffering, is actually the exacerbation of our suffering by overusing and overdepending and being overly defined by our survival mechanisms, then the third noble truth is liberation from the tyranny of our dopamine-oriented reward system. So instead of being defined by competition, we become defined by cooperation. Instead of being defined by cruelty, we become defined by compassion. Instead of being defined by craving, we become defined by contentment. You see, dopamine is, since the dopamine system is about our basic fundamental needs, it deliberately evolved to keep us dissatisfied, which makes sense from a survival point of view. If dopamine gives us pleasure for breathing deeply after exerting ourselves, we want to always want another breath. The moment we become content with our breath and stop breathing is the hour we die. Same thing with drinking water or eating food. These things are required for the survival of the individual. A dissatisfaction, sexual discontentment is necessary for the procreation of the species. So whether it's the personal death or the species death, absence of dopamine is not very, very good. But you will never be satisfied. No matter how much breathing we do, no matter how much water we drink, no matter how much water we pass, no matter how much food we eat, no matter how much feces we pass, no matter how much sleep we get, no matter how much recreation we get, no matter how much sex we get, we're never satisfied. And that places a huge burden on us. Multiply that by the fact that if everyone is self-centered, then that undermines cooperation and the chance for group survival. And if we are continually betraying our sexual partners, that also undermines survival of the species. So we evolved a secondary reward system that is oxytocin oriented, that rewards for cooperation and compassion with contentment, with fulfillment. I don't know if you've ever seen the television series Billions, but there are two protagonists, or perhaps a protagonist and an antagonist. And the antagonist has it all: money and power and charm and his pick of the litter when it comes to sexual partners. But he's deeply miserable and unhappy. The protagonist isn't much better. He has less money, but he has power and he has charm and he has a beautiful partner, but he's completely consumed with his goals. And so no amount of power or wealth or sex will give us the contentment that we long for. We're wired to crave cooperation, compassion, and contentment and fulfillment. And that only comes from our oxytocin-oriented system. Therefore, we must ask the question, how do we get there from here? How do we keep surviving? But how do we lead a life that's worth living? And that brings us to the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path of Enlightenment. A careful study of the Satipatthana Sutta, or the Buddha's discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, reveals that the penultimate passage, the second to the last passage, makes a bold promise. that one can master this path in as little as 7 days. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. One might say, well, that was then and this is now, and humanity's degenerated, and so blah, blah, blah. Or we can say, wouldn't it be cool if that still worked? And here's the answer to that. Let's go to Philosophy 101 and align our definitions. What is enlightenment? What if enlightenment was simply mastery of the Eightfold Path? It doesn't mean we stop feeling certain emotions or only experience certain emotions or stop experiencing certain perceptions and only experience other perceptions. No. It's simply mastery of this Eightfold Path. When we look at the biography of the Buddha, be he real or archetypical, we see the ancient adage that into each life some rain must fall. And so after his enlightenment, after he's teaching diligently for multiple decades, he still experienced difficulties. There were famines, there were plagues, there was external political upheaval because men lost their minds when you started giving women or teaching that women deserve rights. And internally, within his organization, there was stress. Stress was created by his foolish cousin Devadatta, who successfully caused a schism within the body of students and pulled approximately half of his students and monks away for a certain amount of time until he lost them all and they came back. There was even a time when there was a second schism within the Sangha, where there was a kerfuffle and there was debate and people were taking sides in the debate. And when the Buddha came on the eve of a retreat to settle the schism, they rejected him and said, no, we don't want your input. And so he spent that rainy season's retreat outside of a group, just with him and two attendants alone. When I first read that, that broke my heart. So archetypically, a Buddha is not without stressors. What makes a Buddha is not the absence or presence or absence of stressors, but what they do with their stressors. They're able to deal with the slings and arrows that life throws at us. I've had the slings and arrows of, as Shakespeare said, outrageous circumstance. No, he said the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Got to get my quote right. In a very skillful way. The dynamo which drives the wheels and gears of the Buddha's metaphoric enlightenment machine are the 7th and 8th folds of mindfulness meditation. One of the coolest things is that by authentically playing with mindfulness and meditation as little as once every 12 hours or so, the remaining 6 folds of the path become inevitable. The more we watch and rest in harmony with our breathing, the more we cannot help but notice literal impermanence. The more that which we noticed, the more we relax into our exhalation, the more that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. The more we watch and rest in harmony with our breathing, the more we calm our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, and gently stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy. Therefore, the more we watch and rest in harmony with our breathing, the more we cannot help but practice kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. It's one thing to feel the impulse to be kind, but how are we to know what the right thing to intend or say or do or transact in any situation? And here's the answer. The more we watch and rest in harmony with our breathing, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow. Not from contrived calculations, not from wild scatteredness. Excuse me, I gotta take a moment to kick my back. But from love's deeply centered spontaneity, which is known by many things. Some would call it right effort, some call it effortless effort, some call it doing without doing, some call it wu wei, some call it going with the flow, some call it being in the zone, some call it expedient means. So someone asks, do you believe in violence? I believe in love. And if I'm in a situation where me and the neighbor kids are being attacked by a bear, knowing full well I am not stronger than the bear, I will do what I can to protect the kids and buy them time to run away. Not because I hate the bear, but because I love the kids. Does that mean we should all dress up like Elmer Fudd and with a shotgun and hunt bears? I wouldn't recommend that. What I'm saying is, in a situation where it's us and a vulnerable party and an aggressive party, how are we to know what to do? By surfing the momentum created by our regular practice of mindfulness and meditation, we will be able to, it increases the potential, the probability of us being able to spontaneously exercise expedient means. Now, if we do this, if we are defined by watching and resting and loving and flowing, does that mean everyone is going to love us all the time? That's a good question. Let's answer it by looking at the life of the Buddha. Be he real, or be he archetypical. Look at that Buddha's life. Look at the Buddha's life, excuse me. And you will see, no, not everybody loved him all the time. Some people hated him some of the time. That's probably why there were multiple assassination attempts made on the Buddha. Some guy who sat and walked and talked about love and the cultivation of love, for that is what mindfulness and meditation are, was so appalling to enough people that the Buddha endured multiple assassination attempts until finally one attempt was successful and he was poisoned to death, which 9 times out of 10 is an agonizing thing. Look at Lao Tzu, exiled from court. Look at the Buddha, poisoned to death. Look at the Christ, crucified to death. And yes, it could be argued that first he was, beaten and then tortured on the cross and then stabbed with a spear, but you get the basic idea. Let's go back over yonder. 90% of everything sucks. 90% of humans suck. 90% of politicians suck. 90% of spiritual teachers suck. 90% of neighbors suck. So in a sucky world, there's going to be people who are happy to exercise cruelty upon others, especially those whom they disagree with. The Buddha does not offer us a path where we get what we want when we want it for as long as we want it. The Buddha did not teach a prosperity gospel. The Buddha did not teach us to name it and claim it. The Buddha taught us how to watch and rest and love in the most sustainable and transformative way. Evolution has given us an oxytocin-oriented reward system that hungers for meaning, for purpose, that finds satisfaction from kindness and cooperation. If we are serious about that, traversing that path, then the tools the Buddha offers us are the surest way not only to enter that path, but to excel upon it. I don't know about you, but I was raised to be manipulative and controlling. And I tried in the past to contrive opportunities, even on the spiritual path, to practice acts of kindness. And they always turned out pretty bad. What I found is by taking these teachings to heart and watching and resting and flowing, or I should say watching and resting and loving and flowing, opportunities to practice what the kids call mutual support, mutual aid, come to me. And I'm able to use what talents I might have in the benefit of others without having to reach for them and contrive the opportunities myself. As someone who was raised to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, I was terrified that the other path, the path of being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, was idealistic and impracticable. But it turns out, especially thanks to the sixth fold, it works. It's the key to the fulfilling life that is the opposite of us being slaves of our own survival mechanisms. So, do I believe in violence? I believe in expedient means. Expedient means cannot be... I'm a big sci-fi geek. If you're a sci-fi geek, you might remember the second and third RoboCop movies. In the first RoboCop movies, he had 3 directives. In the second RoboCop movies, he had hundreds of directives, and it paralyzed him. Leonardo da Vinci reminded us that the zenith of elegance is simplicity. Watching and resting and loving and flowing is the essence of the path. Follow. When we are led by love's centered spontaneity, we will do great good. When we are driven by fear's scattered contrivance, we will harm ourselves and others. I don't like that. I want to be a benefit to the world around me. Life is fleeting. I wish not to make a stain upon the world, but a benefit upon the world. The most efficient way to use what talents I might have and what skills I might have is to use watching and resting and loving to optimally go with the flow. If what I said is an abomination to you, then for the sake of your peace, find a teacher you respect. If what I explained appeals to you, you're welcome to practice with me over this live streams. On a health permitting, I teach a live stream every 12 hours. And you're welcome to practice with me and learn from me and submit your questions. I'll happily answer them. In the Dalai Lama's book, The Path of Enlightenment, he says, if your teacher, and I'm paraphrasing, if your teacher annoys you, find another teacher. Allow me in parting to remind you of this. The test of a teacher is not whether he agrees 100% with what all your other previous teachers taught, nor is the test of a teacher what he says is in 100% alignment with all your preconceptions. Doing that ensures we will always have, and our teacher will always be iconic and never iconoclastic. The Buddha was iconoclastic. Lao Tzu was iconoclastic. The Christ was iconoclastic. When one reads the Gospels of Christ, it's easy to say, well, I would have been one of the 12. I would not have been one of the Pharisees. But if we dismiss a teaching out of hand because it contradicts our expectations, then we are more of a Pharisee than an apostle. Here's the deal. How are we to know which teacher or teaching to rely on? Easy answer. Inconvenient answer, but easy answer. When you stumble upon a teacher, ask them for teachings. If they won't give you teachings, then write them off. If they do give you teachings, great. Apply those teachings once every 12 hours for 7 consecutive days. If you can't do that or won't do that, then finding the right teacher is probably not your biggest problem. However, if you enthusiastically apply that technique once every 12 hours for 7 days, then notice your results. If at the end of those 7 days you are more anxious and more aggressive and less peaceful and less loving than when you began, then it's time to find a better teacher. However, after applying that technique once every 12 hours for 7 days, you experience a reduction in anxiety, a reduction in aggression, and an increase of peace, and an increase of love. Then you've probably found a teacher who could be useful to you, at least for a little while. That's it. It's just that simple. Whether you use the idea of the scientific method, whether you like the idea of dialectic materialism, it's simple. Take action, notice your results. Based on the result, let the analysis of those results guide your next step. When we look at the life of the Buddha, before he was the Buddha, when he was Gautama, that's what he did. He was a member of the court. He didn't like the results it was giving him. He left court and became a wandering yogi. He didn't like the results that gave him, so he found a teacher. The teacher said he mastered the path. He wasn't satisfied with the results, so he found a second teacher. After some time, that second teacher said, "Congratulations, you have mastered my path." And the Buddha said, "That's very well." The Gautama said, "That's very nice, thank you." But he wasn't still satisfied. Just like the U2 song, "I still haven't found what I'm looking for." So he returned to the forest, and he hung out with 5 ascetics. He practiced asceticism. Gung ho, didn't like the results, and so he stumbled upon the middle way, and he liked those results. So a stick in the mud would look at the story of the Buddha and say, "Oh man, he has no stick-to-itiveness." But a purveyor of the scientific method or of dialectic materialism would say, no. He was taking action and noticing his results and allowing the analysis of his results to chart the course of his next action. Listen, if you look hard enough, you will always find people who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. It's easy to find teachers like that. It's easy to find sanghas like that. It's easy to find books like that. Super easy. But if you don't like the results of that, if you like the results of being that way, no, well, who am I to tell you what to do? But if you're dissatisfied with that type of life, then I recommend the Buddha's quick and easy path of enlightenment. So today was an extremely long lesson that was in response to a series of questions I received on YouTube. So let's now practice mindfulness and meditation of clarity and letting go, which can function as a carrier wave of liberation's peace. It's remarkably easy. As we passively notice air enter our nostrils, silently and mentally we can recite the verb watch. As we passively notice air exit our nostrils, silently and mentally we can recite the verb rest. That's it. Now, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about every 13 minutes or so. Oh yes, by the way, additional questions. So I answer questions about the philosophies and techniques that support meditation. I find myself to be a boring subject of conversation. People, well, they want my resume, and they want to know why I wear my hair the way I do, and why I wear my robes the way I do, and the complete list of all my teachers. That's not going to help you figure out whether I'm a good teacher or not. There's no substitute for applying the teachings and noticing the results. Anything else is a distraction. The teachers that the Buddha interfaced with were paragons of spirituality. They had all their, what's it called? Bona fides. I forgive my pronunciation. They were well respected. They were very popular and financially successful. But the Buddha was dissatisfied with the exercise or the praxis of their teachings. And so he kept looking, based not on prestige, not on popularity, not on profit, not on orthodoxy, but on results. That is all that matters. Let's switch gears and practice mindfulness and meditation of bliss and letting go, which is remarkably easy. As we passively notice our chest swelling with breath, silently and mentally we can recite the verb feel. As we passively notice our chest subtly sinking as gently we exhale, silently and mentally we can recite the verb rest. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers, just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.